Bugs crashing your pack's party? Whether they've got paws or sneakers, your pack deserves a home that's protected from pests. That's where Wondercide comes in. Plant-powered protection made with steam-distilled natural essential oils that actually work. It kills and repels fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, and ants without questionable ingredients or overpowering smells. Safe to use around kids and pets when used as directed. Lab-proven to work fast. And proudly made in the USA. We offer sprays for pets, people, homes, and yards. Plus, spot-on treatments, collars, and even shampoos. Whatever your pack needs, we've got it covered. Founded by a pet parent looking for a better way to protect her dog Luna, Wondercide's now protected over 21 million lives and counting. You might have even seen us on Shark Tank. Go to Wondercide.com and use code WONDER20 for 20% off your first order. That's WONDER20 at Wondercide.com. Wondercide. Protect your pack with plant-powered Wondercide today.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
Welcome to the Shabby Detective, yet another Columbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is the one and only Mr. Chris Dashew.
You know, I do realize that I have to bring the millennial energy to the show because Columbo's back, baby, in every way, shape, and form. Such a popular show with people my age, it's very surprising. But I'm so glad that there are people my age who watch this show.
This episode in particular is a little over 50 years old. Originally aired September 17th, 1972. I should say that it aired in the U.S. on Sunday. It aired on Canadian TV 2 days prior. And there's a reason why I bring that up. And we'll talk about that reason as we go along. Dun, dun, dun. They call that foreshadowing, Chris.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Directed by Nicholas Colasanto, who most people know as, and I don't know about you, Chris. Do you know him as Coach from Cheers?
I have seen all of 0 episodes of Cheers. Bum, bum, ba-da-da-dun, da-da-da-dun, that end the show right there. Look, it's like anything else. I know how important it is to television, I think, as a whole. Obviously, is it a sitcom? Is it considered a sitcom?
Yeah, they're in a situation, they're at a bar, and it's a comedy.
I don't want to make people. I don't want to make people mad who like that show, but I know how important that show is. I've not watched it, not for any particular reason. Just one of those things I've never seen. I'm sure if I watched it, I would love it. But no, I have no frame of reference as to who Nicholas Colasanto is, other than I looked up that he was on Cheers. You a Cheers fan, Mr. White?
Oh yeah, that was must-see TV, man.
That's like Friends was in the 90s, right? Cheers was that in the 80s, wasn't it?
Exactly, but Cheers was actually funny.
Yeah, so I would say Cheers was good and not, problematic. And people can still watch Cheers and probably laugh at it. Laugh with it, not at it, like Friends.
Yeah, if they took the laugh track out of Cheers, it would probably still be very funny.
It's a testament to shows like that is still a thing, because it's like another show that we do, Barney Miller. I mean, that show is still funny 50, again, just like this show 50 years later. So
written by Levinson and Link, one of their story ideas that they still had around, adapted by Stephen Bochco. This one is a bringing together of the powerhouses. This is Peter Falk saying, bring my buddy John Cassavetes in here and let's go to work. John Cassavetes stars as Alex Benedict. And my God, is he a horrible criminal. He is the worst criminal we've seen so far. Everything he does is wrong. Everything.
Can I ask something before I give my opinion on this episode? Given that you're a Columbo, again, this is the first time I've done this, but again, I know that you're dyed-in-the-wool Columbo fan. Is this considered a good episode?
I don't know if this goes in the pantheon. Well, let's put it this way. Let's go ahead and we'll talk about the whole Canada versus US thing. In Canada, this episode fit into a 90-minute slot. In the US, they stretched it out to 2 hours because they were going up against Goldfinger on another channel, and they said, we need a 2-hour episode. So they went back in and they added several scenes, which you can probably tell which ones were added because they stick out a little bit. Not necessarily like sore thumbs, but some of them stick out more than others. The whole thing of the police giving Columbo the description of the victim and that she's just this, white girl, 27, single, or whatever he keeps saying.
Kenosha, Wisconsin.
I can't stand suicide. Murder is bad, but suicide is sadder. This is what they gave me. This is the dossier that they gave me. Female Caucasian piano player born Kenosha, Wisconsin. This is what they gave me. Now look what I find in the scrapbook. Miss Wells, London. Miss Wells, Paris. Miss Wells, genius, superb, talented, magnificent, feeling, taste, fabulous. Look what the department gives me. Female Caucasian piano player born Kenosha, Wisconsin.
That whole thing tacked on. The stuff at the dance studio with the little girl, that's tacked on. I don't know if those necessarily work, but the one that works for me is that whole scene of Columbo talking about how much Cassavetes' house is. That's all tacked on as well.
This is the first time that we have watched a show where I was completely taken out of it. I find it very hard to believe that Columbo would have forgotten that it was being filmed. That to me is such an affront to the way this character has been written as a smart character, to think that somehow Columbo would have forgotten that he was being filmed. When that was the catalyzing moment towards the end of the episode where Columbo goes, and here's the thing, it's because of the way they do that scene where he's like, oh, it's on film. It's being filmed. But yes, Columbo.
You were at the vet 8 o'clock at night, remember?
Yes, you saw it. That for me took me out of this episode completely and made me question the entire episode. Because if that was the moment he catches him, why do anything else? It's just so strange to me. And again, we're obviously going to talk in depth about the episode, but this is the first time I've watched this show and just by the end of it been like, I don't have any interest in watching this episode again. As good as John Cassavetes is, and again, we'll talk about it, just Columbo has been painted as such a smart character that it would be very hard for me as an audience member to believe he forgot it was being filmed when he was sitting in that room with the dog, hearing it, and the guy commenting on it even.
Introduction of dog, which I really appreciate how Levinson and Link and Bochco and Hargrove, now we have a producer, Dean Hargrove, who's taken over now as showrunner. The network's like, give him a sidekick, give him a cute kid, give him a rookie, give him this, give him that. And they're like, okay, we'll give him a dog. And here's this dog who's just total lump. And Falk comes in, looks at the dog and says, yeah, that's Columbo's dog. He's like, I don't want a dog. I don't want anything. They're like, come on, take a look at the dog. He sees it. All right, yeah, that's Columbo's dog.
If Columbo could be in dog form, you've now seen Columbo in dog form. Of course it's a basset hound. when we talk about Peter Falk and just the look of his character, he is a basset hound human being. I mean, again, like that's, and the sad thing about this episode for me is all the things surrounding the episode. A lot of the performances are great. And yeah, everything with Columbo is fantastic. Again, as always, it's just, don't make this character, who is the smartest guy in the room. You've made it clear every episode. Even John Cassavetes says it at the end. He's like, you knew the whole time. But I guess he didn't.
So Cassavetes is a conductor, and he is in a not so good situation with a pianist who he is sleeping with, who wants him to either come forward and tell about their affair and divorce Blythe Danner, or else she'll come forward and talk about their affair and will ruin his marriage.
You never do that as a character. Like, what are you're giving this guy an ultimatum? Like, you're asking for it is what I mean. Again, like, we've seen this now, I think one other time in the show, right? Where it's like, I'm going to tell everybody what's going on. I think it was in the episode with
Robert Culp, I think.
Was that the one where, no, it was the other one, the Eddie Albert one, where it's like, I'm going to out the kind of scheme that we're in on. It's like, don't tell the character, just go and do it. Just go, just run.
Well, even the Culp one where it was like, oh, you want to sleep with me to gain leverage over my husband, Ray Milland? Well, no, that's not going to work. I'm going to tell Ray Milland that we had this affair, and now you won't be able to have a hold over me. And that's when he backhands her. Obviously, he came to her house in this episode with the plan of murdering her because he's taken all of these steps. He drops his car off at the auto mechanics. He sets up that window so that he can come back in, goes over, visits. He's wearing the trench coat and dark glasses, which I love, doing a lot of, making sure that his alibi is tight because he's having conversations with all these people, making sure that everybody knows what time it is, doing that whole Ross Martin thing. We've got 3 hours and I'm going to go take a nap and I'm going to check in with this guy. Please don't disturb me. And then I'm going to sneak out the back and I'm going to sneak in here. I mean, just the mileage on the car alone is one thing that, Columbo totally picks up on. There's the little girl outside of the place when, just that Miss Wells, the murdered victim, doesn't take care of her bird, that she has this cockatoo and that allegedly kills herself. And then the whole suicide note that doesn't match up with the typewriter.
Typewriter semantics, baby. I messaged you about it earlier. I love that in this episode, there's a whole thing about, well, if you pull the typewriter paper up and then you pull it back down, they're not going to match. It's like, oh no. I would even contend this is the first episode in my mind where John Cassavetes should have gotten away with it. The flower, I get it. And the flower is obviously the downfall, his boutonniere, but he took enough steps to really get away with it. He really did. He thought out everything, I feel.
I feel the total opposite, that every time he went to do something, he fucked up. He fucks up with the car because there's the mileage. He fucks up with the typewriter because it doesn't line up.
That's all circumstantial evidence. I mean, it's circumstantial evidence. I mean, that's the thing. That's what I would have appreciated a little bit more about this episode would have been if John Cassavetes had just been like, that is just what it is. And it has that. But I wanted him to be as kind of nasty, nasty towards Columbo with Jack Cassidy. It's like he's being intentionally nasty towards Columbo in that episode. He's antagonizing him. John Cassavetes doesn't really antagonize Columbo. It's more Columbo antagonizing John Cassavetes, relentlessly, which I think is the parts of this episode I do appreciate, where Peter Falk is just having the time of his life pestering the piss out of John Cassavetes.
It's pretty great.
Yeah. And again, they're friends in real life. So there was no way this wasn't going to be interesting, at least from a metatextual standpoint of two really good actors who are friends with one another, giving it their all.
Well, from what I understand, the thing with the whole how much is this house worth, I think that was all ad-libbed. They just said, okay, here we are as our characters. What are we going to do? Before Falk started working with Cassavetes on, I can't remember which one their first one was, but if it was Woman Under the Influence or Husbands or I don't remember, but he hated the idea of ad-libbing. And then he comes to Cassavetes and is just hates this whole process. And then eventually something clicks and he's just like, oh, wait, no, this is very freeing, and is able to start to ad-lib. And that's when Cassavetes becomes his boy. He's just like, oh, yeah, no, whatever you need, John. Then even ended up ponying up like $250,000 for one of Cassavetes' movies so that he could make whatever his next one was. I think the producing thing was Woman Under the Influence, and I can't remember what their first movie was together, but just amazing that these two guys are here. And Cassavetes, he always plays such a great shitheel. I just love.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, I don't know if you're a big fan of The Dirty Dozen, but his turn in that movie, he's so great.
Never seen it.
It's really good. But
I have seen Rosemary's Baby, which he is also an equal shitheel in. I don't think that I could say that this is the first time we've had a big actor on this show like John Cassavetes, but it kind of feels like they've come out swinging in this first episode of the second season. Because John Cassavetes is a big actor, even now. I mean, I know it says on Wikipedia he is referred to as an iconoclastic maverick, and I don't want to say anything less than that, because that is 100% the truth. That is the way he has been perceived in the years since he passed, unfortunately, in fucking 89, which is just
59 years old this guy was.
What a fucking shame.
Yeah.
What a fucking shame. It's just, and again, for every Betty White and Ava Goda that we have actors like John Cassavetes who were taken way too early. Can you imagine some of the people he could have worked with in the 90s and the 2000s? My God in heaven. But I mean, just watching the two of them on screen together, you really do get the sense of the power behind each of the actors' performances is apparent in each scene. Because this is the first time where, yeah, even though, again, I wasn't the biggest fan of Columbo being such a kind of an intentional dope, I guess, the way they wrote him, I do appreciate every time they're on screen together. It does elevate this episode for me because, again, like you said, John Cassavetes he embodies the character. It's embodying it completely.
Oh, I'll tell you another thing that Cassavetes fucks up, is when he goes to call Jennifer Wells and he just is like, give me 555-1212. And Blythe Danner's like, oh, how does he know her phone number like that? Yeah.
John Cassavetes he's like, well, I didn't know her that well. But then he's like, but she did this and she did this and she did this. And it's like, I wish Columbo had been like, how do you know all of this? Like, again, and I know we kind of always talk about it when we talk about this show is when the moment that Columbo knew. This is one of the episodes where the moment he interacts with John Cassavetes, he knows.
Well, Cassavetes coming in, taking off his coat in that very grand gesture. Going back to that Culp episode, we've got the glasses. We've got that amazing shot of the boutonniere in the glasses. I love it.
He saw it. He knew it was there. I mean, I feel like if you saw that boutonniere there and they hadn't seen it already, I feel like you should have been a little bit more careful. That is one of the moments for sure where he just stopped giving a shit about covering it up. But again, I do appreciate that, he does the thing with the stove and then he opens the gas. It's weird how long this episode is because it does feel like it's treading water. It totally does.
Well, the whole red herring with James Olsen coming in here as the hot-headed jazz playing trumpet player. I mean, that's a little much.
That feels tacked on.
I have to say that James Olsen, sometimes he looks so much like Richard Anderson. So the guy that the brother that Susan Clark killed, or the Night Strangler from the second Kolchak. He looks like him in the face, but he doesn't look like him with the hair. Poor James Olsen looks like he had started going bald when he was like 20 and just wouldn't take it all off. They're just
let it go, man.
Yeah, but he's most familiar as General Franklin from Commando.
I was about to say,
yes.
Leave anything for us, Matrix?
Just bodies.
I mean, that when I saw him on screen, I was like, what do I know him from? Because I know him from something where he's just like barely in it. And yeah, I mean, I had seen him earlier this year when I was on an episode of Wake Up Heavy talking about Amityville 2, The Possession. He's in that movie. But yeah, I mean, Commando, like that's though, just bodies. That's what I think of when I think of him.
And that whole thing of like, oh, well, now we're going to go in front of the board because the little girl picks him out as being the murderer and yada, yada, yada. I mean, all that stuff is such a detour. And I'm like, I don't need any of this stuff. Even the stuff with Myrna Loy as the mother-in-law. I mean, it's great to see Myrna Loy, who I mostly know as being from, Nick and Nora from the Thin Man movies. She's fantastic. But here she's just this kind of like older harpy lady. And again, she reminds me of like the mother, again, from that Susan Clark episode, the one that comes in and slaps Susan Clark across the face.
I didn't really think that much about how old hat this episode does feel. It feels like it's a melange of everything else that we've seen in the first season of the show. Like a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and then John Cassavetes, which, I mean, again, it works for the most part. Again, I probably am getting a little bit more upset at this episode than it deserves. I just have a hard time with characters who are written so smartly being given like I was dumb for 1 second. It's like, come on. Like it's lazy. But then you get Henry Beckman in this episode, so I'm not going to complain about that. Anytime he's on screen, I love him, obviously, as a fan of the X-Files. He has a pretty big part in the first season of that show, because he's in the Toombs and Squeeze episode as the guy that Mulder is going and talking to about Toombs. But then in this episode, he just kind of is there, and he's in that Kenosha, Wisconsin scene where it's just kind of weird. But I mean, I'm glad, I like seeing him in things when he shows up, but this episode feels the most directionless of the episodes we've seen because of the fact that it has to be 2 hours long.
They shot that stuff so late in the game that he doesn't even get a credit. The Canadian television, they ended up getting the shorter version, and then the US gets the longer version to play, and it is like totally last minute type of stuff. I mean, to the point where it was like the episode was in the can, and then they had to figure out where they're going to lengthen these things.
So we have all these things. We have the car, and we have the girl, and they do the thing that Columbo always does, where he goes and kind of investigates those those pieces of the kind of crime on their own to try to amass the information. But it keeps pointing at John Cassavetes. Like it doesn't point at anybody else. It's either was somebody else that they don't know who it is, or it was John Cassavetes. Like it's the character that James Olsen plays. Like there's never a doubt in anybody's mind he didn't do.
As soon as he walks in and he's so upset, you're just like, oh, well, this guy was obviously in love with this girl. And Cassavetes, on the other hand, is acting so cool and calm, almost suspiciously so, because it's like, oh, here's somebody that was in your orchestra who died. You should probably be at least upset about that because you thought that she was a super talented girl. And if he was genuine, he would have egg on his face because he was so mad at her about canceling the concert. Totally all the way around the board. The wrong reaction is what he's giving us.
Right. Well, and I mean, again, if you use modern police psychology as any sort of indicator, people who are showing up at the crime scene unannounced, right, and helping the cops, like they talk about that all the time with serial killers. Like, and obviously John Cassavetes is not a serial killer, but they're inserting themselves like Ed Kemper did into the investigation. I'm gonna go help, like John Gacy.
You guys read Wombaugh?
And that is like, you gave yourself away that you murdered her by showing up, being the first person there, dude. Like,
and wearing that trench coat and dark sunglasses after 10 o'clock at night.
Right. I do like, though, what's funny, because John Cassavetes and Peter Falk, like, not the same physically imposing, but John Cassavetes at some point in this episode kind of just looks like Columbo. He's like wearing a similar like colored suit and tie, and I was like just trying to figure out, like, intentional, obviously, I think, but it's just funny because like he wears it so much better than Peter Falk does.
Cassavetes does some great acting with his eyes. I really like towards the end when he leans over Blythe Danner and starts talking to her, which I wouldn't have allowed that if I was Columbo, because it's like, what are you trying to tell her?
Yeah, but come on, just tell her, sweetheart, tell her.
But just the look in his eyes and stuff. And I love really that his mistake with Jennifer Wells and that phone number puts that seed of doubt into Blythe Danner's head. And then when, this thing with the boutonniere comes out, it's just like, yep, for sure. And she's not going to stand by her husband. She's just like, nope, that was bridge too far. He slept with the wrong person.
I mean, again, this kind of comes back to some of the things that we've always talked about with Columbo. At the end of the day, If this were real, this guy would never admit to it in that room.
Oh, no.
That's the funny thing about all this. Like, these people are so rich, they would be able to mount a massive defense and they would get off scot-free. And like, that's the sad reality of what Columbo is correcting, is it is a revenge fantasy on the rich in a lot of ways.
Terrific place. Terrific.
Thank you. We like it.
Gotta be a 40-foot living room. Dining room's 15 feet deep. I can't see the rest. Windows. Ideal. This is a dream house.
I'm glad you like it.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Please.
What are you paying taxes on this place?
$18,000 a year.
3 times 18, carry the 24, 7 down, bring down to 0. Place cost you $720,000.
$750,000. How did you arrive at that figure, $750,000?
That's real estate rule of thumb. It's a trick, no magic. I'm not an appraiser or anything like that. How much you got in the furniture?
Oh, 200,000, 100,000. Give or take 100,000, something like that.
I'll take it.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
Did you have anything specific that you wanted to talk to me about?
No, I'm gonna get to that, but I'm fascinated by money, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by money, for what it can do, that's all.
Yeah. Anyway, what I was gonna ask you is this. How much do you make?
I think that's very impertinent. How much do I make?
Tours?
I don't know.
Concerts?
I don't know.
Publishing?
I don't know.
Et cetera, et cetera. I make $11,000 a year. So at $11,000 a year, I got $750,000 for the house, $18,000 in taxes, $200 in furniture. How much help do you have?
I have 5, including the garden.
You got that, and the money, plus. 11,000 times 10 years, 110,000, 11,000 times 100 years, 1.1 million. Well, let's say 900,000. That's 90 years' work for me just to live here, without eating.
That's why that scene with the I make $11,000 a year actually really works. Like, that's the one scene where it's like, okay, this might have been added on, but this is really Columbo showing that working class hero type of thing.
He understands the disparity in wealth between the two of them. And that's why John Cassavetes thinks he can do whatever he wants because he's rich. And boy, thank God people aren't like that in real life, because then the world would be so screwed up, right? It would be terrible if people were like that in real life, if rich people could just do whatever they wanted and get away with it. I don't know what the world would be like if people did that. I'm glad people don't do that. That is the thing I do really appreciate about this show, is this is very much eat the fucking rich, the show. The sad thing is John Cassavetes' character would get away with it in real life, but Columbo won't stand for that. And I again, that's Lincoln Levinson and Bochco's just smart writing of understanding. This is pretty much just adult Scooby-Doo in a lot of ways. Like, Scooby-Doo was pretty subversive because it was a bunch of kids taking down a rich old white man. And this, it's one, or like you said, working class guy sticking it to the rich, normally rich white guys or rich white women, but rich people in general.
I mean, those bastards that still run the board, and you've got the guy who comes in who I mostly know him as being, I think is it Small Wonder's dad, or like the police chief from the Police Academy films, when he comes into lunch and Myrna Loy's just like, oh yeah, let's not talk about this horrible incident with Jennifer Wells. We'll talk about how we're going to set up a scholarship. And they're like, oh yeah, no, we can put that in the paper. That'll be great. And it's like, oh boy.
So fucking fake and virtue signaling. And I don't like the stuff with James Olsen's character because it does feel just kind of weirdly off topic and just a kind of a side tangent. But I like some of that stuff because it's part and parcel, it feels like, because his character ends up having more to do with Myrna Loy and that than anything else, really, kind of in a strange way. I honestly feel like maybe the other big missed opportunity in this episode is not really leaning on Blythe Danner, like giving her a lot to do, because I mean, obviously, Gwyneth Paltrow's mom, but a fantastic actress in her own right.
And boy, does she look so much like her daughter in this episode.
Right? Oh, lordy. It's like walks on screen and you know exactly who that is and you know exactly who her daughter is in real life. But it's a shame because she's a really great actress and she's effectively given nothing to do other than just be the wife who trusts her husband way too much.
Yeah, she really should have had that moment with Columbo, and she doesn't really get that.
No, she gets taken out of those moments every time John Cassavetes sees it happening. And he puts the bug in her ear to not interact with him either. So I get why it's written the way it is, but I would have preferred to have seen more of her character because her interplay with John Cassavetes is great, and I'm sure her interplay with Peter Falk would have been great as well. It's just kind of very much not there. But Pat Morita is.
Oh, and just for the record, George Gaines was the father on Punky Brewster, not Small Wonder, and it was Husbands was the first time that Falk was being directed by Cassavetes, though they had been in stuff before like Machine Gun McCain. But yeah, we've got Pat Morita in here. Basically, it's funny because I've been reading a lot about Chinatown, and he's basically that Chinese houseboy, Japanese houseboy from Chinatown, just with the thick accent and stuff. And I'm like, really, Pat, you're doing this role? But I mean, this is before he took over Arnold's on Happy Days, which was great.
Yeah, this is what, like 2 years before that? Something like that? Like a year, maybe?
I think it was a little bit more than that, but I could be wrong because we had the original Arnold for quite a while, and then Morita took over for him.
I was just surprised to see him in here in such a bit part.
Yeah, well, and I think all of that whole thing was the reshoots. So I think that they just said, okay, get us a guy. So like, same thing you were talking about, Henry Beckman. It's like, okay, we need a guy that Peter can work off of. And I don't know if folks like, oh, give me Beckman because I like him, give me Morita. I don't know. But I mean, with the way that this was, I mean, it's funny on IMDb, they have Cassavetes and Falk listed as directors along with the credited director.
Again, there was not a lot of way to really tell, but I assume Cassavetes and Falk were the ones doing any of the the add-on scenes, right? The things that were augmenting the length of the episode so that it could fit into that time slot. I assume they were the ones who did it. It's not like they brought much to it. Even if they did, I can't really tell because the episode has some stylistic bits to it. You talked about the glasses already. The end where John Cassavetes gets in Blythe Danner's ear is great, but it's not like the Jack Cassidy episode where there's kind of this undercurrent of style. This is very much here it is. And look, this is the first episode of the second season, so this is an opportunity to wow a new audience, bring in new people, and set the tone for what you're going to be getting for the rest of the season. So I get why it's not overly stylistic, but I appreciate when this show kind of leans on like its ability to do interesting things. Because last season we had them doing interesting things kind of in every episode, it felt like.
Well, it's kind of weird because I think that A Stitch in Crime, which ends up being the 6th episode of this season, I think they shot that first, but then they went with Etude in Black as the first episode shown, second episode shot, which was kind of similar to what they did in the first season, because I know that the Spielberg episode was not the first episode shot, but they're like, oh, we really like this, we're going to move it forward. So maybe they did the same thing with this, where they're just like, oh, Cassavetes and Falk, let's move this forward in the rotation.
And that was my assumption as well, because again, it's John Cassavetes and Peter Falk. Like when they're on screen together, it is probably some of the best Columbo interacting with anybody else I've seen up until this point in the show. And I'm sure we will get very good interactions, but when you have someone like John Cassavetes who just brings a gravitas with him, because that's who he is, Peter Falk could fucking phone it in and he would still be great, but he's not phoning it in at all. And that's the thing about this show that I do appreciate, at least with the lead with Peter Falk, and for the most part with the kind of the main criminal, they're never phoning it in. Even in the episodes we have not enjoyed, like the Eddie Albert episode, was not phoning it in. Nobody was phoning it in. They have the issue of, it's just not an interesting story. It's not well written. And that is a script story problem, not the actors. Because Peter Falk and John Cassavetes, they could be reading the phone book back and forth, or one name and then handing it to the other guy, and then he reads a name and they go back and forth. That would be interesting enough because of who they are. It's sometimes it feels like they're trying to be cute. Lincoln Levinson, they don't need to be cute with this show. Like they understand how to write a How Ketchum story so well that I don't understand why they would need to lean on kind of being cutesy. Oh, it's the boutonniere, and Columbo forgot that he was being filmed. Like, guys, come on.
We've talked about all of these other things, and you brought up the whole thing about the recording of the concert and then the recording of the statement that Benedict makes as he's leaving Jennifer Wells's house, and that whole difference between these where the boutonniere is and where it's not. So again, we've got Columbo relying on technology. So I really like when he's got the two screens up and it's just like, I don't know how to work this thing. One of his eyes is just completely looking the wrong way. And I'm just like, Peter, come on.
It's funny that we keep mentioning this thing about Columbo really having this kind of undercurrent of like how technology is pervasive in the culture at the time and how it's being used. Because yeah, I get what they were going for with it's like, oh, it was filmed, right? But in 1972, things being filmed live was not some weird thing. It's weird because the other times they've used technology, they've been using things and talking about things and kind of introducing, probably to some people, ways that these things can be used in novel ways that are less commonplace and mainstream than a concert at the Hollywood Bowl being filmed. Like, yeah.
Looking at those cameras at the Hollywood Bowl, it almost looks like those are big old video cameras, but I guess because for sure the news footage is 16 mil. And I love that they're actually showing it on a projector, which is great. But the other stuff, it looks like it's supposed to be video. And then all those post effects where it's like the video matted inside of the TV screen. Oh, I love that kind of stuff.
Oh my God. It looks great. It looks great. I mean, for what they're trying to do, it looks great. I do like at the end in the final scene where where the jig is up with Cassavetes. I think it's either Cassavetes or Falk is standing effectively in front of the projection. And so Cassavetes' face is just being projected onto I think it's Cassavetes' back. It's being projected onto his own back. Like, again, there are some interesting things that they're doing. And I like that, again, it is a technology-driven thing. But I felt like there should have been just one more wrinkle to this. Because the thing with the flower is, if you look at all of the evidence that Columbo has holistically, the thing that really you could nail him on is probably the mileage thing. And then the flower, I guess, is the second thing. But the mileage thing felt like the nail in the coffin. Like that felt like in another episode, that would have been the thing that would have gotten him found. But in this, it's like, no, it's the flower. In and of itself is circumstantial because I'm not sure somebody would go to jail off just that flower alone. Like maybe they would. I don't know. It's a little cutesy for me because, it was his boutonniere. And it's like Columbo's like, suicide. Suicide's not a thing. He's like, yeah. That's my favorite part of this entire episode is when Cassavetes, I forget what he says. He's like, well, maybe she didn't kill herself, and Columbo just looks at me. He's like, yeah. And Cassavetes goes, you're not buying that, are you? Columbo's like, no, I am not buying it. It's like, what are you doing, Cassavetes? He's like, just stop. I just like that. Yeah. There's like that, the perfect delivery. Yeah. And he's like, you're not buying that. It's like, no shit, dude. I'm not buying it.
Yeah. The interaction between these two makes this episode worthwhile for me. You're right. As far as the story feels pretty rote and a lot of these clues just don't hang together.
This very story that you were reading, right? Say this, I mean, again, because Columbo is very much in the vein of Agatha Christie and Miss Marple and stuff like that. If you were reading this book, you would probably, by the end of it, feel a little cheated. Because, again, the way the story interacts with itself and kind of unfurls itself is just so much like everything else we've seen that it doesn't feel novel outside of how good Peter Falk and John Cassavetes are. I can understand how that could be enough, but for me, I need a little bit more. I just want something else. And again, because this episode is also longer than normal, it really suffers from feeling kind of disjointed and without a focus, really. Cut the James Olsen stuff out, maybe cut the Myrna Loy stuff back even, and probably it would hang together a little bit better, but stop doing this thing where someone's leaving their car somewhere, then they're going to go get it unbeknownst, and it's like, come on, just come up with something new, creative, something else.
Remember, we've already seen that, but that'll come back up if it hasn't. This whole, how far is it from your house to the murder victim's house?
I think this is the first time we've seen it, but I'm glad to know it's going to come back. Maybe it'll be somebody's downfall next time it comes around. That's the thing. Any one of these things in this episode could realistically have been the downfall of the character. And we've seen that before in the show where there's like with the Eddie Albert thing, it's like, oh, well, is there a body in that box? And you think that's going to be the thing. And then it's not, it's something else, but it could have been in another show, or if they decided to take a different angle. If they didn't want to do the boutonniere in this, they could have done the car, they could have done something else. And this show is really operating at peak performance when not only are they introducing things that it could be, they really get close to convincing you as the audience member that is what it's going to be. And then they pivot right at the last moment and keep the story going. And this episode tries, I think it just throws too much, frankly, out. It's like the typewriter and it's like, oh, dear God, like how many more things do you need? And so how many are there? There's the little girl, there's the typewriter, there's the James Olsen's character, and then there's the bird, the thing with the bird, and then I guess the boot near the car. So it's 5 separate things it could have been without it just being the thing that it ends up being, which is the flower.
And I tell you, when they have this court case, it's going to be Blythe Danner up there testifying against her husband.
Ultimately, what this boils down to is not even the boutonniere. It's Blythe Danner refusing to lie. Because if she had lied, he would have gotten away with it. And I think maybe the thing that would have better served the episode would have been taking some of the uncredited scenes out and adding more John Cassavetes and Blythe Danner. Give us an idea of what their relationship is outside of what we're seeing when Columbo's around them. I mean, we do see it a little bit, but we rarely see just them together, and you don't really get a sense of how put upon she actually may feel by what he's doing, because it seems that she just kind of believes him until she doesn't.
Because he's an insufferable prick. When he comes in and just starts yelling about the camera positions and how shitty everybody is. And again, I know he's making a scene in order to make sure everybody notices him and is like, oh, yeah, he came in at 5:30 and was just being an insufferable prick. But I think he was like that more often than he was not.
The way that they react to him doing that is not surprise. So it would lead me to believe he's like this even when he hasn't murdered the piano player that he was stooping, you know?
Couple little trivia things about this. Apparently $11,000 a year would figure out to about $76,000 in our money, 2022 money. Not a bad take home. Not bad.
Question as to what it would have bought at the beginning of 2022 versus now. That would have been like $65,000 at the beginning of 2022. Now it's $75,000. God, John Cassavetes' character is so rich, it's disgusting in this episode. I do like that. I like you said, that scene where they're going back and forth. Oh, 10,000. Oh, yeah, man. Did you just do that in your head?
Right. I love it.
Yeah. And I do appreciate that John Cassavetes concedes the loss to Columbo at the end of this episode. He's just like, you win. You're the genius. It's
and
like
when he raises his baton up, I'm like, yeah, nice.
Gotcha. It's over. I've come around since we've been sitting here talking about it a little bit more on this episode, but yeah, the 2 times that I watched it, it really irked me that Columbo is so smart up until they're just like, he can't be that smart. It's like, but he has been. This entire show, there's never a moment, because we talked about it before, there's never a moment that I don't believe Columbo doesn't already know. Like in this episode, he says he knew the whole time. So don't say like, oh, the recording, like, or don't have a scene with him with the dog in the vet's office with the thing in the background. And I guess he just didn't notice, or he wasn't paying attention, or whatever. Like, that would have been how you rectify all of this, is you have Columbo in the vet's office, seeing him on the TV, and just making a mental note of seeing him. And then when he sees him, because that's after the fact, he could have just been like, oh, I comment on the thing with the flower, but don't give away that he's on the case already. But just, I don't know, because it could have made it clear that he saw and internalized, even subconsciously, what he was seeing was Cassavetes on the screen. And then it would have completely fixed my big, overwhelming issue with this episode, which is making Columbo seem dumber than he is been portrayed in any of these episodes so far.
Yeah, if he was just like, I know he didn't have that flower on when he came through the door, how can I prove it? And then it's like, oh, the concert's on tape.
But not like, oh, it was being recorded. I'm not going to let the writers of the show tell me that Columbo's stupid. I don't believe that. He has been written so smartly up until this point. I'm going to overlook this right now because, again, it's a misstep, a pretty big misstep for a character that's so smartly written. But yeah, it's just like that one little, just give us a little and it would have been fine. It would have been fine. But yeah, man, what a performance from the two leads in this episode. That is where this episode gets to hang its hat for sure.
So there was a great video out on, I can't remember if it was Trailers from Hell, I think it was, that talks about how a lot of these Columbo movies were actually packaged and shown in theaters overseas, especially in Italy for whatever reason, maybe because Columbo's Italian. And there's a great poster for this one with the Italian title, which is Concerto con Delitto, which is Concert with Crime. Fantastic artwork. I love the you've got him up front with the cigar in his hand. You got Cassavetes in the back with his hand up. He's conducting. And then you have this woman screaming, which looks like it's just reused from a Gialli poster.
Il tentente Colombo.
It's so good. So good.
Actually, the other thing that I noticed, and this is a oddly specific gripe, and I'm not trying to nitpick, but John Cassavetes should have looked at what people do when they actually conduct.
Yes, thank you.
It's really fucking fake looking. As someone who was in band for 6 years, I know what it looks like to actually have someone conduct you. And he's literally doing like just that.
Yeah.
If this is idiot Chris forgets that this is an audio medium. I'm waving my hands around in the air like I don't know what I'm doing. And John Cassavetes is doing the exact same thing in this episode. And it's not supposed to be funny, but I found myself laughing because the music is not following along with what he's doing, because what he is doing is not remotely conducting, not in a realistic sense. It looks really fake and funny as hell, frankly.
Yeah, there's a real method to this whole where you go when you come down on the down beat and which way is, the second beat, the third beat, the fourth beat, and then down again. And just doing that with one hand, keeping time, and the other hand is directing where the instruments are coming in. And
there's an art to it. It reminded me of a contemporary issue that you run into in TV and movie now, where characters are playing video games, and it's just like
button smashing.
They're having a fucking seizure while playing, and it's like they're just clicking the buttons real fast. Like, that's not how this works. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. But it's just funny because it's obviously not played for laughs. Just so dorky looking that you can't help but laugh. So
we're going to have a couple more of these longer episodes this season, one more longer episode this season, Dagger of the Mind, episode 4. In the next season, we're going to get, I think, 3 longer episodes, but 4 longer episodes, but one of those is one of the best, in my opinion, episodes of Columbo ever. So if they wanted to make it 3 hours long, I'm there for it. So,
oh damn, okay. Don't tell me what that episode is, because I want to go into it not knowing that it's I never look before I watch it because I don't want to know the general consensus on this show. Again, I assume this is like we said at the top, I asked you, this is a well-regarded episode because of how good the interactions are. Like I said, me and my own predilections that I bring to anything that we work on, like I'm going to be looking for certain things and certain things are going to bug me, and that's just. It feels like something that should have bugged somebody else is actually more bugs me about it. Is like somebody else should have not let it get that far to the point where that is the way the story concludes. Like there had to have been a better way to do this story.
Well, they were riding high. They had just come off a whole bunch of Emmy wins for the show. So they are definitely doing very well. So we'll see how the rest of season 2 goes. It might be a great season, it might be middling. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out as we go along. But yeah, we'll be back next month with a look at the Greenhouse Jungle, where we've got the return of Ray Milland coming back, but this time he's actually playing a villain rather than just a guy that runs a newspaper. So I'm excited to see Ray come back again. And it is written by Jonathan Latimer, who I had completely forgotten. He wrote a whole bunch of stuff for Ray Milland, which is kind of cool. I was just watching Alias Nick Beale, which he wrote that has Milland in it. He wrote the adaptation of The Big Clock. He did a whole bunch of stuff with Milland. So I'm very curious if I can pick out some of those Latimerisms in this next episode.
He also wrote a lot of Perry Mason.
So he seems to have his chops. So we'll see how the Greenhouse Jungle goes.
I'm a fan of Perry Mason, the original show, and those movies, but you know what would have been great, and I know it never happened, but Columbo and Perry Mason, man, that would have been. I mean, Columbo never lets anybody get past the point where they would need a lawyer anyway. So, I mean, you can't put Columbo and Perry Mason in a show together because Columbo negates the need for Perry Mason essentially outright. So,
well, Perry Mason, he would get those cases and then do the investigation after they came to him, right?
In the movies, he would. But in the TV movies, he would. If memory serves me right, in the original show and in the books, he's just an attorney, but he has, Della and the guy who's played by William Catt later in the movie version, but his father, right, or uncle or whatever it is in the original show. He's the one who goes out and does the investigating for Perry Mason, but Perry Mason was, at least the original show, I haven't seen the movies in forever. The original show was more or less courtroom. Like, it was at least the Perry Mason parts were. But I remember he sent his, investigator to go and dig up the dirt so that he could use it to bury them in the courtroom.
Well, yeah, he had William Catt, he had Daniel Roebuck, he had the black guy, and I can't remember if he had one other one. Kind of like Matlock kind of had his crew of people that he would deal with as well.
It was William Hopper.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's who he was. It's Paul Drake, because it's Paul Drake. I believe it's William Catt's playing Paul Drake Jr. I think in the movies. Yeah, but man, no, fucking Perry Mason, man. Just another great this kind of show, very similar to this kind of show. Like, I know that I would have said yes to doing a Columbo show with you anyways, because I will never turn down an opportunity to work with you. But stuff like watching Perry Mason growing up really informed me about the kinds of things that I like in this area of the world, being like kind of crime, because I'm a huge fan of these kinds of things. I've read 91 books this year, and 30 of those books have been this kind of stuff. I've read a lot of other things this year, but consistently, if I look at my, the things that I've been reading, the genres of book, it has been murder mysteries. And growing up on Perry Mason, and I wish I had seen Columbo, because I only really watched Perry Mason. I never saw Columbo. I never saw Murder, She Wrote. But Perry Mason informed my love of these kinds of things. And so when now watching Columbo, I have to hold myself back to not watch the next episode of Columbo. That's how much I am enjoying the show. Even when the show missteps like it did now, I'm still enjoying it. So I can't wait to see what the second season brings, because, yeah, this was the kind of the greatest hits of Columbo, this episode. It kind of brought in, it had the glasses, it had all the little things we've seen in the first season, and hopefully the next episode gives us something interesting and new and fresh, and not just kind of a fun little retread of some of the tropes we saw in the first season.
Well, until we come back next month to talk about the Greenhouse Jungle, Chris, what is keeping you busy, sir?
WeirdingWayMedia.com is keeping me busy. 19 shows, including this one, the show you're listening to now, can be found over there. Mike's show, my shows, Father Malone's shows, a guy who we collaborate with, his shows are there. Everybody's shows that we work with, for the most part, at least in a less than just guest co-hosty way, are over at Weirding Way Media. And it's not just movies and TV. We got all kinds of stuff. So go on over there. That's where most of my stuff, all of my stuff is, actually. What about you, Mike? What's keeping you busy?
Yeah, the projection booth and a whole lot of other shows over at WeirdingWayMedia.com. So that is the place to go if you want some good shows. And we can always appreciate when you give us a rating and review of this show, wherever you get your podcasts at, especially if you get it via iTunes. We would love to hear from you, as long as you're not offended by our rampant swearing. So,
oh no,
sorry about that.
Yikes.
I did bleep some episodes recently just to prove a point of how ridiculous it is. So
yeah, sorry. If you listen to anything else that I've been on, this is not a put on. This is the way that I am all the time, just like this is the way Mike is all the time. We have, between the two of us on our main shows, almost 1,500 episodes. So if you don't think that this is the way that we are, tough shit, it is.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.